If you were never trained in acrobatics as a kid, but you want to start at a later stage in life, it can be difficult to know where and how to start. It can be scary, confusing, and slightly embarrassing. If this sounds relatable, then this video is for you. I've taught acrobatics to hundreds of adults from scratch, and the way you approach acrobatics for adults is very different from how you approach it when teaching kids. In this video, I'll give you a roadmap of the most important acrobatic skills and the step to reach them to create a solid acrobatic foundation. In the end, I'll also introduce a few moves that look pretty awesome but are still beginner friendly. There are many different types of acrobatics, and acrobatics maneuvers are used in various ways in countless different sports. While these disciplines of acrobatics may seem different, they all share the same basic principles. And they look cool as f***. Having a general understanding of acrobatics and using acrobatics in your training will also do wonders to your coordination, spatial awareness and balance, and can improve the way you move regardless of what your main goals and main sports are. So without further ado, let me introduce the basic skills that I think creates the foundation of acrobatics regardless of discipline. The number one essential skill to learning acrobatics is rolling, both backwards and forwards. Now rolling can be kind of difficult, especially if you've never done it before, but it's essential for every kind of rotational maneuver such as front flips, back flips, and hundreds of others. When you start working on your rolling, be it backwards or forwards, it can be nice to just practice rolling back and forth without going over your head at first. Just to sort of create that smooth motion where you're rolling your back and using your legs to go forward or backward, or your arms. When creating rotation, which is fundamental in acrobatics, you either have to use your upper body and arms, or your lower body or legs. Now you can mimic this by simply laying on the back or rounding your back and using your legs to create rotational movement. Upper body is completely in the same position, and you can try to do the same with your upper body as well. Now once you feel you got the hang of this, just rolling smoothly back and forth, you can start going over your head. And the least scary way of doing this is doing a forward roll by starting in a squat. And now you want to hit the upper part of your back, not your head in the ground when you start off. So you roll forwards, and that's it. Now it's important that you keep your spine rounded at all times. And as you get more comfortable, just basically turning over to your back, you can try to get all the way to your legs. Now you need a little bit more momentum, and you might even need to throw your hands forward in order to get properly up to your legs. And that's a forward roll. It might take you a few tries to get this right, but once you get the hang of it, you can start working on your backward roll. And in your backward roll, at first, I recommend just practicing the position of going over your head. So basically putting your hands to the side of your head, your legs over, and just get comfortable here. Now next step would be to actually try to create some momentum. And what's important here is that you use your legs to create momentum. From lying, you can practice rolling up like this. By using your legs only and really rounding off your spine, you can notice that you're already creating momentum and rotation by throwing your knees backwards. Now, if you focus on getting your feet over your head, that's basically everything you need in order to get around in your back roll. So from here, throw your legs over, but to protect our head, it can be nice to put our hands on the side of our head like we practiced at first, and also slightly push away from the ground in order to remove some of the weight that might come on our head. So keep your chin to your chest and basically throw your legs over your head. It might be a little bit scary at the beginning, and I recommend using a soft surface like a piece of grass like this, or a mattress in your bedroom or at a gym or whatever, just to get comfortable in the beginning. Now you might even want to try and roll sideways, which is also very useful in a lot of different occasions. So when you're rolling sideways, you basically want to use the longest path possible, starting from your hand to your elbow, to your shoulder, to your mid-back, to the opposite hip, and then to the knee and foot. So basically, like this. When you're starting to practice this, you might want to take it very slow and start from your knee. You go hand, elbow, shoulder, back, opposite hip, knee, foot. You can try to reverse it to do it sort of backwards again. Now I leave it up to you to experiment with this. There are probably 100 different ways you could do this and teach this. But personally, I think what's going to make your roll better is doing it 100 times and practicing to make it as smooth as possible. Always focusing on whether it's a back roll, forward roll, side roll, to keep a curved body and to make it as smooth as possible. Rolling can be super fun and it can be used in a lot of different cool skills. So while this may seem super basic, you can develop this into super cool looking skills once you get the hang of it. The next skill that's absolutely essential to your acrobatics is a cartwheel. Now you can do a cartwheel in a lot of different ways and you can develop it into a lot of different cool things. Be it more dynamic like a round off or more flowy like capoeira style moves or even helicopteros. There are 100 ways to develop your cartwheel and it's also super relevant to gain that awareness necessary for a lot of more advanced acrobatic skills. In the beginning, when learning a cartwheel, a lot of people are getting a little bit confused on the placement of the hands and what feet are going first and whatever. I recommend starting low because then you can learn the order of things properly before complicating it more by doing a high and proper cartwheel. Starting from a squat position, placing the closest hand in the ground, the other hand, and then foot, foot. You can practice both ways. And then you can put a little bit more dynamic oomph to it. And you keep going a little bit higher with your legs and higher. And then suddenly it's a cartwheel. So if you start out by doing this step by step, it's much easier for you to do things in the right way from the beginning. You can start doing cheat walkovers. You can try aerials or not, or more complex things such as helicoptero and a lot of other cool things. The third foundational acrobatic skills is kipping. While doing a kip-up from the ground, in this case I did a suicide kip-up, but a ground kip-up, like this, might seem like a very isolated kind of skill, but actually it's the easiest way to teach your body to do a kip, using your hips to create momentum. And this particular skill is used in a lot of different acrobatic moves. Examples of this is bar kips, for example. Apart from your arms and your head, your lower body does more or less the exact same thing. When you're doing head springs, front handsprings, or a lot of other moves where you're using your hips to create momentum, this is what you're actually doing. I do have a dedicated tutorial for this already, but I'll teach you the stepwise approach on how to learn it real quick. So basically, starting from your upper back, your legs behind your head, you want to push your hips up. Just doing this a few times might be a good idea, just to sort of understand it. You're focusing on driving your hips up, not your legs down. Now you can try to put your hands on the side of your head, push a little bit just to help with your arms, and try to create a small little jump. Now use your hands to prevent your back from coming down too hard. Now as you start getting little oomph to get slightly off of the ground, this is when you can start using your legs to create momentum. In this case, we want to throw our legs down in order to start a rotating motion. Now next you can try to actually get into a bridge. But most people won't be flexible enough to get into this position properly, so you might just have to go for the next step anyways. And in this case, we want to push a bit harder with our hands and throw our arms forwards in order for our upper body to rotate over our legs. Because if our upper body is behind our legs, we will just slap back down on our back again. And here I definitely recommend you have a semi-soft surface to practice on, because you're definitely gonna have a lot of slams on your back. It's a part of the process, and just try to make sure you're not slapping too hard to protect your neck. And if you're getting a headache, you might have overdone things a little bit. Once you master the kip-up, you can start experimenting with doing a forward roll into a kip-up. You can try to do a kip-up from the head. And you can start practicing things such as front handsprings and a lot of other skills where you use this same kind of kipping technique in order to create momentum and rotation, and to sort of use your body to jump rather than your legs. This video is sponsored by Vivobarefoot. Those of you that have been following me for a long time know that I've been working with Vivo for a very long time. I've also been using barefoot shoes exclusively for more than a decade. The reason for this is that I get a much better ground feel. It feels much more natural, and I feel like I'm more in control of the environment. Barefoot shoes are flexible, thin, they have zero drop, meaning they leave it up to your feet to do their job and not the shoe. For me, using barefoot shoes have also saved me from a lot of knee injuries that I was struggling with back in the days when I was skateboarding. And in general, strengthening your feet by either walking barefoot or using barefoot shoes is a great way to improve your general foot health. Now, I just received their new model, the Vivobarefoot Sensus, which is perhaps their most minimal model. The soles are super thin and flexible, meaning I can actually move my feet with them, and the uppers is made from wild hide leather. It basically feels like wearing another layer of skin on my feet. As expected from a barefoot shoe, the toe box is wide, meaning you can actually fit your feet without squishing your toes together, and they breathe very well. Overall, I think I might just have a new favorite barefoot shoe. Twisting is also an essential acrobatic skill, and when starting to learn how to twist, it's a good idea not to start by jumping, actually. You want to create rotation, usually with your upper body, and you strengthen the rotation by closing in. So when starting, you can try to spin on one foot, and you stop the rotation by opening up again. It's also a good opportunity to start practicing spotting. It's an essential part of a lot of different acrobatic skills where you're using your eyes to look at a particular place and then trying to look at that place again for your landing, for example. So in this case, I'm looking at the camera, I'm doing my spin, and I'm finding the camera again, opening up to prepare for my landing. Now, once you sort of get the hang of this, you can actually start doing it by jumping. So same thing, you can start creating rotation with your upper body, and you jump, you close in, and you try to spot at the same place. And that's a great way to start learning how to spin or twist or whatever. And at some point, there are 100 ways you can develop this into tricking type skills such as 540s, 900s. You can do beat twists, corkscrews, gymnastic kind of skills like the back full, or more funky kind of things like full twist back handspring, for example. All of these skills are obviously advanced, and there's a long way to build up to these things, but it's nice to start from the very foundation. Handstands are obviously an essential part of acrobatics, and you use it for so many different things, although not necessarily always in a balanced position. You use a handstand for the back handspring, the front handsprings for cartwheels, and you use it for a lot of different variety of acrobatic skills. I do have plenty of handstand tutorials, and it's kind of intricate, so I won't go into detail in this particular video, but feel free to check out any of my other handstand related tutorials to learn how to handstand. When doing acrobatics, there's a lot of jumping. And jumping isn't just jumping. Jumping is a skill. I won't go into super details about this in this video, but bear in mind that different skills have different kinds of setups. You have running setups for front flips, for example. A standing back flip has a different setup. How you're using your arms and how you're sort of creating a rhythm to the takeoff can play a considerable role in the particular acrobatic skill. So practicing how to jump and practicing specific jumping setups for the specific skills and being able to jump higher is also a good idea because you will get more time to perform the particular maneuver. Now I will make a separate video for jumping in particular, so keep an eye out for that when it comes. Now if you already feel like you sort of mastered the very foundations and you want to start learning cooler skills, here's a few things that I think is beginner friendly yet pretty cool looking. First one is macaco or monkey flip. It's a great way to introduce backwards rotation before learning backflips and back handsprings, for example. I already have a tutorial for this as part of my backflip tutorial, which you can check out. I will link it down in the description. You also have a few flip-looking moves from tricking that look pretty cool and are beginner friendly. First one is the butterfly. The second one is called erase. And both of these skills will not require your head to be upside down, but they do have some complexities that is fun to work with. You also have various kinds of wheel variations. You can try to do one-armed wheel. You can try to do forward wheels, which is sort of a combination of a wheel and a walkover. And you can start practicing towards the helicoptero, which is not at all beginner friendly, but there's a lot of cool things to learn in between the wheel and the helicoptero. And I, of course, have a separate tutorial for this available as well, which I will link down in the description. Alright, so that was a quick little tutorial on how to approach acrobatics if you're a complete beginner. Be sure to check out my complete backflip tutorial right here, or in my app I have an acrobatics program where you can learn all of these skills all the way from scratch with a ton of different progressions along the road. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.